Today we are discussing about the concept of Sass. So actually Sass, what is Sass, why we need, what is its purpose, step by step everything we will try to understand. Actually, to learn Sass concept, you must have prior knowledge of HTML and CSS. So basic knowledge of HTML, CSS are very important to understand this workshop of Sass. So I hope everyone is aware of your HTML and CSS clearly, right? Yeah. So today in this workshop, I will give you complete overview of what is Sass, why you need this, how it is used in application development and all. Already we are using CSS. We are using CSS to build the application's user interface in a more interactive and responsive way. To make the user interface interactive and responsive, so we are going to use Sass, CSS. You can check what we are discussing in the session. You can note every concept. I will share the documentation with you. You can practice after you finished understanding, listening these concepts, or simultaneously also you can try. That's not any issue. So but it is for the people who have good knowledge already in HTML and CSS. You should have knowledge of that. Okay. So Sass is going to be used as a preprocessor of CSS. We will discuss that point. First, tell me one concept, one point. We are already aware of CSS. When we are working with CSS style sheets, can you tell while writing the styles, any issues that you faced, that you thought that CSS is very complex? CSS is very complex. Why you are doing this again and again? Do you have any such issues while working with CSS? What do you say? While writing CSS, good repeating properties. Okay. Anything else? While working with CSS, what are the issues you are facing? And you thought that why there is no solution for this? Anything such options? Compatibility issues. Okay, good. Anything else? Repeating compatibility, very good. Okay. Anything else? Anybody? So, what are the major issues actually with CSS is CSS on its own is good for building interactive and responsive UI, user interface. On its own, it can build very good interactive user interfaces. It can build everything, right? But what is problem is style sheets are, are actually larger. Styles are larger. They are more complex and harder to maintain. These are the main issues that we face with CSS styles. Style sheets are larger, occupy more, and they are very complex. So many things we need to rewrite, repeat, and maintenance. It is not easy to extend them. However, they support some features, but they are not enough. So, what are the major issues is reusability, extensibility, maintainability, maintainability. These are all some important issues of CSS. So reusing, extending, maintaining, these are all the major issues that we are facing with the CSS. So Sass is going to provide you the features which CSS is not having. So Sass, if you ask is this Sass, is a language. So the concept of Sass is what is Sass? It is a CSS extension language. So Sass is a CSS extension language. Like Sass, there are so many other extension languages. Like you have less also. But when compared to others in the market, Sass is little bit more matured, stable, and powerful extension language for CSS. So it is an extension language. It is an CSS extension language. And what is the specialty here is actually it will provide you things which CSS is not having. That means Sass provides features like, so it have features like nesting, like mixins, like inheritance. So many features are provided by this Sass. So when compared to CSS directly, remember directly Sass is again not understandable to browser. That means Sass is not directly understandable to browser. So technically Sass need to be translated again into CSS. So your application will use CSS only. Sass is for developers. That means to overcome the issues that developers are facing in writing CSS, this language will help. Directly using CSS may cause some issues. To overcome that, you need the concept like Sass. What Sass will do is it will provide you some features which CSS is not having. But Sass is not directly understandable to browser. Your application will not use Sass. So what actually happens? Developer writes Sass, and this is translated into CSS, and CSS is used in your application. That means your application will use CSS. But why you are not directly writing CSS? Actually, in some companies directly they write CSS. But if they have to do lot of CSS things like maintaining CSS for several components they are using, at large scale they are using CSS, then directly using CSS is a tough job. Directly using CSS is a tough job. That is the reason now they suggest the developers to use Sass. So developer can use all the programming language like features. They can utilize all the features of Sass and they can simply convert that into CSS. So finally, your application is going to use CSS only. So Sass is for developers' convenience. Developer can easily write complex CSS in a simple way. For example, I will tell you one simple point. Suppose we are having headings like heading 1 to heading 6. I want to access all these headings from 1 to 6 and apply different colors for them. I want to apply different color for different heading 1 to heading 6. Generally, in CSS, we have to write everyone individually, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. Like that, we need to write all these individually. Now tell me, because if you are aware of any programming language, tell me in a programming language how to access from H1 to H6 in a simple way. What do you say? In a programming language, how you can access H1 to H6 in a simple way? What do you say? You are aware of any programming language. How do you access? So H1 to H6, I want to access all of them. So if you are aware of any computer programming languages, tell me the simple way to access from H1 to H6. Actually in CSS, what we do? H1, what effects? H2, what effects? H3, what effects? You need to write like this. What is the easiest way to access them? Variables, okay. Actually, one of the easiest way to access all this heading 1 to heading 6, I hope you people know we can write a loop. Am I right? Am I right? We can write a loop, no? We can write a loop. So where I starts with 1, I less than or equal to 6, I plus plus, it can increment, it can access h of I, which will be first time it will, just roughly I'm giving, first time it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I hope you understood the point, right? That means in direct CSS, we have to write everything manually. We need to configure and write everything manually lengthy. Now in Sass, you can write in this way. That becomes easy. That means you can use your programming features as a developer. And by using those programming features, you can easily implement the concept. You can easily implement the concept and configure it. That's how we can manage everything. I hope everyone is clear. Understood? Right. Good. So technically, Sass provides such features. So by using those features, we can write CSS in a simple way. It is used in a simple way. Do you know actually? So you people learned about Bootstrap. Huh? You people know about Bootstrap, everyone, right? You know Bootstrap. Do you know if you know Bootstrap? Bootstrap, Bootstrap is built with Sass. Is built with Sass. If you know Bootstrap, Bootstrap is completely built with Sass. That means Bootstrap like frameworks are built by using Sass. That means in Bootstrap, you have seen components like carousels, you've seen accordion, models, off canvas, nav bars, and everything. You have seen all these things. And all they are actually built by using Sass. They are built by using Sass. And they are finally converted into CSS so that we can use CSS in a simple way. You can write complex CSS in a simple way by using the concept of Sass, right? So we will see today how this Sass concepts works. Actually, Sass refers to syntactically awesome style sheets. Syntactically awesome style sheets. Style sheets. So in short, we call this as Sass. Now, how this Sass is used? Because remember, it is not mandatory to use Sass. In general projects, sometimes if there is very less work with Sass, then they directly use only CSS. That means if they have very less CSS effects and concepts, then they don't use this Sass. So Sass is used when they have very complex CSS. They have to maintain complex things using CSS. Then they have a lot of work in user interface with CSS. Then we recommend to use the tool like Sass. Right? Let's see how we can set up, install, and use Sass in our projects. So for that, what are the environment you need? I will see that. So set up environment for using Sass. So let's see how we can do that. How do we set up environment? For this, actually, you need to basically set up the environment for your language. Means for web development, the basic environment you need to set up, and I hope everybody have the basic environment set up for web development. So that means you people already know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You already installed the libraries, everything. You know how to create a project. That concept is same. So first what you do is install Node.js on your PC. So after that you install Visual Studio Code as editor. These are very common because already you are developers, you already working with HTML, CSS projects, so you already have this in your PC. Am I right? Everybody have these, huh? So I don't need to tell that, right? Everyone know how to install Node.js, and usually Node.js is required for building web applications, scripts, and all. Make sure that your computer is installed with Node.js, your PC is installed with Node.js, and you have the editor Visual Studio Code. These two are basic things. I hope everyone already have these in your devices. So now what you have to do extra is you have to install Sass locally. Install Sass, we will say globally. Globally, so how do you install Sass globally is in your computer, you can open your command prompt. In the command prompt, you have to run the command npm install Sass globally Sass. You have to run this command npm install Sass globally. The flag G indicates that it is globally installed so that you can have the Sass project anywhere, in any device, in any drive, you can use Sass. So let's do that. First, I am opening the command prompt, and in the command prompt, just you need to run the command npm install globally Sass. So you have to just run this command and it is going to install Sass on your device. So the other basic environment you already have, it is installed. Now you can see, so it is installing this and it is ready. It is asking that my package manager is using an older version, a new package manager is available. That's okay. So the package manager is npm You know, npm is the package manager that you get with Node.js. So Sass is successfully added into your PC. Okay. Now, how to use Sass and how do we implement in an application? We will see step by step how we can manage everything step by step. Let's see. So, once you install Sass, now close. Let's create a project. So, create a new project. So in this project, we will learn how to implement Sass and how to use Sass. Creating a new project, this is nothing but a traditional web application. You create a new traditional web application. In that web application, how to use Sass, I will show you. We will see the process, right? How to create a new project, already you know. First, create a new folder on your PC. So in my computer somewhere, I will create a new folder by name Sass workshop. Some folder I will create. And after that, open in Visual Studio Code. So after open in Visual Studio Code, set up a basic environment. I hope you people already know how to set up the basic environment because already you are working with HTML, CSS projects and you know how to set up the basic environment. Basic environment is nothing but in your project, you add the folders like public. This is your Sass workshop. So Sass workshop folder. So in this Sass workshop, you add public folder for static resources, SRC folder, and you need one package.json. Package.json is nothing but you will get that from npm init y. So through this command you can run and you can create the package.json. All dynamic resources we will keep in SRC. All static resources we will keep in public. Means your HTML pages in public and all your Sass CSS will be in SRC folder. We will keep this, right? And package JSON, it will contain information about the versions of application that you are using. You can manage that. Okay. So let's set up this environment for the project and see. So what I will do, let's go to the PC locations and here I am creating a drive, a new folder. Okay. I will give the name as Sass workshop and let's open this in our VS Code. Let's open that in Visual Studio Code. This is my Visual Studio Code and open the project file, open folder and it is in D drive. It is Sass workshop. That is the folder. And let's create the basic file system. I'm adding a new folder public. I'm adding another folder SRC and I will generate a package JSON. For that, open the terminal. In terminal, you have to run npm init and flag y. This is going to set up your package JSON file. You see the package JSON is there. This everybody knows, all the environment, basic environment, everyone knows. So this is not a new concept for you. So once you set up the environment, now let's go to public and add a new file that is index.html. This is our index.html and this is our startup page. Okay, index.html. Okay, now in this index, we will create some design and we want that design very attractive, interactive, responsive we want. Then usually what we do, we directly use some CSS. But as I already explained, CSS, directly using CSS for developer, it is complex. So developer needs one extension language for CSS, through that he can make CSS in a simple way. Means you can write complex styles in a simple way. It is translated into CSS. So finally your page is going to use CSS only, but you will not directly write CSS, you will write Sass, which will be translated into CSS. So let's see how to do that. First, I will create one small interface, and we will try to create that interface with more effective UI by using some styling. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm creating a div. In this index page, I'm creating a div, and I given the class as alert. I'm using some alert. Okay, and it is having a heading. Heading is nothing but suppose registered successfully. Successfully. This is the message, and we have some paragraph. In this paragraph, we say like so. Congrats, your account created successfully, and some activation link sent to your email, something. Okay. After this, I will put an anchor. Just it will have some href, roughly hash, and here is a help. Okay. Now, what is the point is now I want this attractive. I want this little bit effective. So usually here, when I run this, you can see I will open this on live server, and you can see this is the user interface. That means you can see it is the user interface. So that is the UI. I want this little bit effective. I want this effective. That means I want to change font style, border, shading, effects, everything we want to add. This is a simple alert. We want to make the alert little attractive. Then generally what developer do? Developer usually write the CSS directly. Now observe carefully. If I have to write the styles directly, if I need to write the styles directly, what is issue here is C. Means how do I write? For example, I want a border for alert. So what is the class? We will have class alert. That means here we will put dot alert, that is the class. For alert, I will keep some styles. So for alert, we are applying some border, padding, shadow, something we are giving. Now I want some effect for heading inside alert. Then tell me how to write the selector for heading inside alert. How do we write effects for heading inside alert? How do we write? How do we refer heading which is inside alert? If I write heading 3, it will be everywhere. Means all locations heading 3. I don't want like that. I want alert inside alert heading 3. Heading 3 inside alert container. Tell me how to write it. How do you write? In CSS. In CSS, how do you write? You know CSS, in CSS, how do you write? You learn different selectors, na? You learn different selectors. How do you write? How do you refer a heading which is inside that alert container? Usually what we do, we write like this. Dot alert, that is the class, that is container, and space heading 2, heading 3. This is the child selector. Am I right? I hope everyone learned, all the CSS basic, right? Understood? Huh? That means how do we access alert? We have to access alert separately. And how to access heading inside alert? Then you have to write like this. And how to access paragraph inside alert? To access paragraph inside alert, again, I need to write alert, inside alert paragraph. That means heading separate style, paragraph separate style I want to apply. But I cannot write directly heading 3 paragraph because it will apply everywhere where heading and paragraph are there. So I need to refer like this. And how to write anchor? That means you have to write alert. In alert, we have to space anchor. We need to write the effects like this. So I need to write 3 different blocks. I need to write 3 different blocks separately. I need to write like this. So when you write like this, then you can apply. Actually, 4 blocks I need to write. One for alert, another for heading inside alert, another for paragraph inside alert, another for anchor inside alert. That means actually in your CSS, you have to write 4 blocks, one after another 4 blocks you need to write for applying effects for them. Now, what is the specialty of Sass is actually what is the specialty of Sass? Sass allows nesting concept. It is going to allow the concept of nesting. And what is the specialty of nesting is you can write the elements with the same hierarchy how they are present inside the page without using extra selectors. Actually, in CSS, you need to use uh, rational selectors you have to use, like parent and child, adjacent selectors, all these types of selectors you have to use and implement. But what is specialty of Sass? I will show you. That means how Sass is going to work. So first important is generally how do we implement Sass? How do we configure and implement Sass in our project? So first thing is here I will show the concept after setting up the environment. So what you do here, we will set up Sass file for styling. We will set up the Sass file for styling. So what I will do is I will how do we set up Sass file for styling is I will go to SRC. In SRC, I will add one folder called this folder name I will give as some dist folder, or I will keep this folder as build folder. You can give any name. That means all the final production file must be inside that folder. Okay. So we will use any dist or build any name. This is actually production folder. In SRC, one more folder we will add, that is Sass. Sass folder we will add. One Sass folder is there. Better for Sass folder, we will give SCSS. SCSS is the name for Sass folder. This is all the Sass files are kept here. They will be translated into CSS and CSS files will be kept in dist folder. That's where we want to maintain. That means all your Sass files in SCSS folder and all the CSS files in dist folder. So this is the process. So in this project, we are not directly writing CSS. We are writing Sass, which will be translated into CSS, which is translated into CSS. So first step, what we are going to do now is in this SCSS folder. So let's set up the styling. So first point, go to SRC folder in project, then add Sass SCSS folder. for Sass files. And another one is add dist folder. This is for production files, CSS files. For CSS files, we will keep this. All the CSS files we will keep in dist folder, and Sass files we will write inside the SCSS, right? That's the point. So first what you do, let's go to SCSS and add a Sass file. So next point, add a new Sass file into SCSS folder. I will give name as some index.scss. Sass files must have extension SCSS. Sass files must have extension SCSS. So keep the extension SCSS. Add this file here. So let's go and add a new file, and the file name index.scss. Okay. Now in this file, I want to write the styles. So how do we write the style? What is the specialty in Sass? First important concept about Sass is Sass supports nesting. It supports nesting. Nesting means generally in HTML page, as I showed you previously, to write effects for alert, to write separate effects for heading in alert, and write separate effects for paragraph in alert, and separate effect for link, we have to write 4 blocks, separate blocks. Usually we need to write 4 separate blocks. But now what we can do is we can keep the block in the same way how they are designed. That means what we can do now is we can write alert. This is the main block. And inside alert, for alert, what effects you want, you can write those effects. After writing the effects for alert, we want to write effects for heading inside alert. Then directly you can keep this heading inside it. And directly you can write paragraph inside it. And directly you can configure anchor inside it. That means this is the concept of nesting. Means you don't need to use parent and child selector, adjacent selectors merge. So without using parent child selector, adjacent selectors, you can simply write exactly in the same way how they are present in the page. Means exactly with the same hierarchy how they are in the page, you can write with the same hierarchy. That is the advantage. Actually earlier this is not possible in CSS. In CSS we cannot write like this. In CSS, how many blocks we have to write? We have to write alert effects. After that we have to write alert heading effects. After that we have to write alert paragraph effects. After that we have to write alert anchor effects. I need to write 4 blocks, separate blocks, but now I can make everything in a single block. However, this single block have nested inside. So that means you don't need to use these kind of selectors anymore everywhere. You can exactly maintain the same hierarchy in your Sass. So see what I am doing now. Let's go to index.css. So here we are using all the selectors are same. ID selector, type selector, class selectors, everything same. That means the styles that you have to write by using the same selectors. So you can use all the CSS selectors. So here I will give a point. So now what you have to do, you have to write your styles using CSS. So let's write that alert. That is alert is a class. In index we have an alert class. I am writing alert. For alert, what effects you want? So for alert, I want effects like border. So that is 1 pixel, solid, some red. However, I will not give that directly red. I will put with some red shade like this. Little darker shade of red I will give like this. Okay. And alert needs a padding. Suppose I given the padding as 20 pixel or yeah. And alert needs some margin also. So suppose I given margin all directions as 20 pixel. Alert needs a background color. I will put a background color. Just I will use the background color. So same red color, but I will keep this red as lighter red. So, or better, because we are saying success, I will use a green shade for this, a light green. Then the border also better we keep a green. So we better keep a green shade for this. Okay. So because I'm giving successful, so I will use the green effect for that. So this is border, padding, margin and border color. We are giving some effects, background color we are adding. Okay, now I need to write effects for heading inside alert. To write effects for heading inside alert, then what we are doing is here, we can use heading 3 directly inside it. That means we can write in the same hierarchy how they are present in the page. This is not possible directly in CSS. In CSS, what you have to do, you need to write another block. In that block, we need to configure heading and inside heading as a child, alert inside alert as a heading as a child. But now you can directly write in the same hierarchy. So that is good. Now I am giving this font family. So font family, some Arial I'm adding. And what we will do here is I am defining some default, it have a font size. So no need of any changes for that. So just put some color. I will put the color and I will use same color and that is 67, 148 and 42. Same like the border color what we have given, the same I will apply for heading. This is how we access for heading. Okay, now next I want to write some different effects for paragraph inside heading. Later you are going to learn another concept like variables, how to use variables and all. As of now, I am explaining you about nesting inside Sass. Later, when you learn variables, instead of rewriting this color, you can reuse this color. How do we do that also? I will tell you. That is in the next level, we will discuss about that. Initially, we are discussing about a concept called nesting. Nesting means in the page, what hierarchy is used for designing elements, the same hierarchy you can use in your Sass, which is not possible in CSS. Okay. Now I will access paragraph. Paragraph font style. So font family. I will give the font family something like some Sigo UI. That is the font family. And I'm using some font size. Font size as some 18 pixel, font size little increase. And for paragraph also, I will put the color and the color will be same RGB and it will be like same color. So 67, 148, so 148 and 42, that is the same color we are applying. So that's fine. This is what you are going to make it more better in the next concept, next level, because one color format is being used regularly, then you are rewriting it again and again. Now what is problem in this is later if I want to change that color and if I have to change the color, I have to modify everywhere. Later, you will find a solution for this. That means we can create variables, we can maintain them and use them here so that it is easy to update. So wherever the changes are required. So initially our concept is nesting, to understand nesting first. Okay. Next, we need an anchor. Anchor also uses a font family. Some Arial is the font family. And it also have font size. Font size is suppose 18 font size. This reusability you are going to understand. And color is same. Suppose I will give the color also as RGB. Same color I am applying. Same color I am defining here. Now here we are not implementing everything of Sass. In this example, I am just writing the nesting concept of Sass. Later, we can make it more simple and better with some more concepts. I will tell you. We will discuss about that. So now I return the basic style. And in this, our main concept is nesting. And you see, in the nesting process, I return everything. Now, can I link this to our HTML page? I cannot link this to HTML page because HTML cannot use Sass directly. So this Sass need to be translated into CSS. It need to be translated into CSS. You have to translate the Sass into CSS and CSS is used. So developer, if he have to write directly CSS, this entire process little bit more complex, it will increase. But now we made it little simple and we will see how it is converted to CSS. So after writing your CSS, you have to convert. So index.scss, I will copy this code for you. The code I written here is this. Let me copy this code for you. This is the code I written. After writing that, we need to translate this into CSS. So we have to compile the Sass code, compile the Sass code into CSS. How do we transcompile the Sass into CSS? Let's see how do we transcompile that. To transcompile, so in your terminal, you have to run the command. In the terminal, you have to run the command. See, currently, I am in the root folder. In the terminal, I am in the root folder. Root folder is Sass workshop. Our source file is in src. In src, it is in scss and the file name is index.scss. So from here itself, directly you can refer it. How do we refer that? In the root folder, we have /src. In src slash, we are having, what is the file we are having? S folder, scss folder we are having. And this scss folder, we have a file index.scss. We have index.scss. So we are writing that index.scss. So it should be translated into CSS. And that CSS file must be inside dist folder. That means the Sass code must be translated into CSS and that CSS must be inside dist folder. So what is the target? This is the source. What is the target? Target is in src. We have a dist folder. In the dist folder, we want the file by name index.css. Now what will happen is it will create a new file by name this index.css. It will store that inside this dist folder and all the Sass code that you written, it is converted to CSS and kept inside this CSS. Now this CSS you can use in your HTML pages. That means our HTML pages will use this. And remember, if you go back and do some modifications in the Sass file, those modifications are not updated to the CSS now. Every time after modifying the Sass file, you have to run this command again. So instead of doing that, you can use a flag called watch. So you can use the flag watch. What that flag watch will do is it will watch this source file. If there is any modification happened in the source file, that modification it automatically updates, compiles and updates into Sass file. It is going to automatically CSS file. It is going to automatically update into that CSS file. So this is the process it is going to manage. It is going to maintain. So what it is going to do now is it will get the code of Sass and it will translate into CSS and it will be watching, so that if you do any modification in SCSS, it will be later updated immediately to Sass. Otherwise, if you don't use this watch flag, it is only one time. And next time, if you do any modification in the SCSS file, every time you have to run this entire command. And one more important, this entire command requires a compiler, and that compiler is Sass. We have to use the Sass compiler. So Sass compiler have to execute this command and collect the source code from the SCSS and translate into CSS. What Sass compiler is going to do? This Sass compiler will verify are there any problems in the code, because it is a language needs a compiler will compile all the lines. It will verify are there any issues in the code blocks, syntaxes you written. If there are any issues, it will report those issues as errors. You need to fix those errors, then only you can use them. So if there are errors, it is not going to generate your CSS file. So if there are no errors, then it is going to do that. So you need a compiler, and the compiler is Sass. So what you have to do is in your command prompt, you have to, so first I will give a syntax. In the command prompt, what you have to do is you have to use the Sass compiler. So Sass is the compiler, and it should take your index.scss, that is the source, and it should be translated into SCSS. It should be translated. This is just syntax. Actually, according to our example, it is in some location. And what is the location? Sass workshop. So workshop is the location, and here we are using a Sass compiler. And remember, this Sass compiler is available only when you install Sass. Make sure that you install Sass on your computer, which I showed you above. This is how you have to install Sass in your computer. Once you do that, now you can use it. So it is in which folder? It is in the folder. So that is SRC folder. In SRC, we have SCSS. In that, we have index.scss. It should be translated into SRC. Into that, it should be into dist and by the name index.css. And we use the flag watch. So it will be watching the source file, checking are there any modifications happening in that. If there are any modifications, and it is going to implement that. And you see now, so this process is called as pre-processing. This entire process is called pre-processing. So here you need to understand a word, that is pre-processing. Pre-processing. So pre-processing, it is the process. It is the process of translating. So SCSS, that means the Sass code into CSS. Into CSS. That is what it is going to do. It is going to translate so it into that. So Sass compiler, Sass compiler, Sass compiler is used for transcompiling. Transcompiling. And very important is it checks for issues in code and generates css generates css only when it is clean, without errors. This is very important, you need to know. Now you observe what will happen here. So this is pre-processing. That is what we are doing. Pre-processing we are doing. So when I run this here, so it is in which folder? src, scss, and all these folders. Index.scss, it is index.css. So that is the location it is. And you can see that. So actually, this is Control C, the path we given here, an src, scss, index.css. I just used a virtual path here, but it is actually the physical path. Yeah. So the physical path. So physical path requires an backslash to configure. So it is reading some problem. Let me check what is the issue here. It is referring to dot dot slash, which is what is this file path? Actually, the path reference. So I given a wrong reference for the path actually. Why wrong reference? Because it is nothing but here. Let me modify this path. So directly the folder name doesn't require a backslash because it is referring to dot dot slash means it is exiting out. Dot slash means it will get the current folder. Now it is working fine. Okay. Okay. This is the forward slash. So and with let's remove this one. So we will use a forward slash. You don't need here because actually this slash is going to take us outside the folder. So we will use inside the folder. This slash is not required. Just use the virtual path here. That's enough. So we are using the virtual path for translating. Okay, this is enough. Now that is done. Now you see what happens here. It is going to translate and see it is saying that press Ctrl C to stop. Otherwise it will be watching and modifying. And observe carefully here. The source file is SCSS. In that index.scss, now it is translated into index.css. Actually, one more additional file is created, that is map. Map is actual required for migration from one version to another version. When you are migrating, all the migration information is kept inside this mapping. So this is not required for us to link. This CSS we have to link to our HTML page. That means it is translating SCSS code into the CSS and it is keeping in the dist folder now. Everything is ready. Let's go and observe carefully now. Originally in SCSS, when you return the code, you see the code, it occupies 21 lines because I am not using any minification technique, directly 21 lines. So of code you return. When it goes to CSS, observe in CSS, alert, alert heading, alert paragraph, here also 21 lines are there. The number of lines we can reduce later by using minification concept. Here also same, but the approach you see, you will observe that here it is using one block for heading, another block for paragraph, another block for anchor, but now everything is combined. How to reduce the number of lines, that you already know. For that we need to use minifications. You learned about minification, you cannot later use that minification also. This is the original file. Original file is converted into like this. Now this we have to make it more smaller. We can do that later when you learn about variables and all, we can make it more smaller. So what you do, link this to HTML page. So which file you have to link to HTML? So we have to always link the CSS file, not the SCSS file. So where is that link? Relation is equal to style sheet, and href is, it is in which folder? SRC, in that dist index.css. And you know that if you want smaller, then you can keep inside, you can minify the file and you can use the minified file also. Now it is ready. Once you set this, when you set this, and you can see when I save this, the output is this. That means automatically whatever the effects are there, they are working here. Effects are configured here. And if you want to do some modifications, then because it is still watching, you do the modifications. Whatever modifications you want, you can do in the original SCSS file. You do the modifications. If you ask like, can I modify the CSS? You can. But if you are modifying the CSS, that means you are disturbing the entire pre-processing. So then using the pre-processing features will be difficult later, because it overwrites your, any modification you done in CSS will be overwritten. So better not to modify. So the CSS, modify the original source file. So here, suppose I want to do some modification, what I will do, for alert, I will use some like border radius, and I am keeping border radius as 10 pixel. I'm adding a box shadow. I'm keeping the box shadow 2 pixel, and suppose green, that is the shadow we are applying for that. And you can see that whenever I compile that, whenever I save the compiled the original CSS, SCSS into CSS, and you will see that those modifications are updated here. So whatever modifications we are giving, those are updated here. Automatically they are updated. So any changes, so you are making, suppose anchor, so font weight is bold, and save, and it is updated because it is still watching the modifications, it's compiled, and it is showing that result here. This is the basic how we can implement Sass in our application. But remember, in this, just you have learned the concept of pre-processing. That means in this, one more additional thing what you have learned is pre-processing. Pre-processing is nothing but allowing to translate the SCSS into CSS, and you learned about the concept of nesting. What is nesting? Nesting is nothing but it is the process of configuring selectors in the same hierarchy how they are defined inside inside page, in the same hierarchy how they are defined inside page. That means, so you can configure a block inside another block, so which is not possible directly in CSS, which is not possible in CSS. So one of the main concept here is nesting, and that you have implemented here. And what is the example of nesting? Syntactically, just now you saw that. Suppose you are using an div. Inside the div, there is a heading. That means you can directly, so here you can define the styles for div. And inside that, we have an heading, and we can directly define the styles for heading. That means these are the styles for heading. So the styles for heading directly you can write in the same hierarchy. So without nesting, how do we do? This is nesting. Without nesting, how do you do? So that you will get a clarity on that. So without nesting approach, how we do? We write div, and here we need to write the styles for div. And after that, we have to access the div with heading 3, and we need to write the styles for heading. Styles for heading. We need to configure in this way. But with the nesting approach, it becomes very easy to configure and define. So this is one important point about Sass. So what is the concept? So in Sass, one important topic is how preprocessor works, means how you write the code, how you translate it into CSS. And one facility is nesting. Nesting is not only the concept, as I told you. So SAS provides so many good features. What are the features here is another important, this example I will copy for you. So in this example, we have two files, src, in this scss, index.scss. This is the file. I will copy that file for you. I will copy this file, and yeah, this entire note I will share with you. So I will share with a Google Drive link and a community so that you can get it from there. And one more file is in public, we have index.html. So index.html, let's keep this index.html here. So there we are linking that CSS, right? Now you have learned 2 points in SAS is how the pre-processing works and how the nesting works. And another important concept in SAS is actually the concept of variables. Variables. Another important concept is variables. And it's very simple point. Actually, in computer programming languages, so variables are storage locations. Storage locations in memory where you can store a value and use it as a part of any expression. So what is advantage is it enables separation, reusability, and easy extensibility. So many are there. So this is one point. Extensibility, everything we can easily implement. And actually in your JavaScript, if you have learned already JavaScript, you know how you declare a variable, configure the variables and use them. Here, so variables are defined by using dollar keyword. That means a variable is declared by using dollar. So variables in SAS are declared by using dollar. We have to use the dollar symbol for declaring variable. So syntactically, you have a dollar and a variable name and colon, whatever the value you want to store. And actually, variable value type is a CSS value type. CSS value type means what? CSS value type means it can be in a string type, it can be a color or pixels, whatever the values you are having. That means it can use colors. So it can use units. Different types of units are there. So it can use styles, font styles, effects, so etc. All these can be used as the value types. That means later I will tell you other options also. That means what you can do, value can be a color, it can be a CSS unit. Color means you can put RGB, HSL, different colors, huh? Right? So for example, you people know already, like colors means what? So it can be color name, the color shade, hexa code, it can be hexadecimal code, and you know that it can be RGB, it can be RGBA, or it can be HSL or HSLA. These are all CSS color, so you can apply them. Units, you know that already you learned. We have relative units, so we have absolute units. relative, absolute units, These all you can apply. These all you can apply for as values in variables. So what is the point here? In our example, see simply what we will do is, in this example, you saw that in index.scss, I am using this RGB color of green in so many places. That means 67, 148, 42. This I am using in several places where I am using for border, for heading color, for paragraph color, for anchor color. Everywhere I am using the same. If you are using the same everywhere, and later if I want to change that color, I have to modify everywhere. Then this time, instead of doing that, we can define a variable. And important is variables can be global or block scope. Actually, if you know JavaScript already, you know that global variables are configured outside the block so that you can access from anywhere. Block scope variables are accessible only inside the block and to its inner blocks. You know, they have a closure mechanism. They can access inside that, can be global or block scope. So you see now, globally above, I am declaring a variable dollar. I will put here as suppose alert color. Alert color is the variable, and what value you want for that variable. Value is nothing but I want RGB, and RGB with the 67, 148, 148 and 42. And what I will do is 148 and 42. Yeah. And what I want is I will give the name as, not instead of alert color, alert success I will give. That is the name. And close. This is the variable we declared. And what is the advantage of now? This is alert success. Here I want the same color. Then you can access the variable here by using dollar and the variable name. Here also we want to access that. Then what I will do here also, heading color is coming from a variable. And paragraph color is also coming from a variable. We can put that variable here. And anchor color is also coming from a variable. That means we can put that here. That's it. Now you can see when I save this, and it is going to reflect in the same way. And interesting part here is, suppose if I modify this variable color, that means I am modifying the color of the variable, little darker I given. And you can see that it is going to reflect everywhere. So that means if I do that, it is going to reflect everywhere. That means everywhere it is going to change. Suppose I change this to some other color, some red color or something. I changed this so that you can just watch it and you can see that it is going to reflect everywhere. The border, the effects, everywhere it is going to change. That means just I modified here inside this. I modified inside this and it is going to reflect everywhere. And you can see it is going to reflect everywhere. So this is the concept of variable. You can have multiple variables. So a certain value is being used regularly in different places. Then you can declare as a variable, you can access and you can use it. This is one great point about Sass. It allows you to store the values and access and use the values. So this is an example for that. So we are using a variable, accessing and displaying the values wherever we want. And any modification, it will reflect everywhere. This is one example I will copy here. This is an example for that. So technically, all this is the concept of variables, how you can use variables. Sass have so many more points like functions, mix-ins, statements like conditional statements, looping statements. By using them, we can make it more better and more simple. It have options like importing, exporting. It have the options like extensibility, inheritance like features. So let's see how to handle them in the later stage. That means in the next session, tomorrow, we are going to discuss about those concepts, how the statements works and all. I hope Today you understood all these concepts, and tomorrow we are going to discuss the other points of Sass. That means we are going to learn functions, mixins, statements, how they are used to make the CSS better.